the first item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. It's nice to see all these familiar faces with us this evening. And I can't see the screen. Are we not online? We're on. Are we? Okay. Should we stop or can we move forward? Okay. Okay. Do we have anybody who, first thing is approval of minutes before public comment. So I'll entertain a motion to approve the February 1st, 2023 minutes. Thank you. Moved. Motion made by Paula.
Second.
Seconded by Brendan. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of the minutes, please indicate by raising your hand. Okay. We're missing a couple of board members tonight, one because of work and another one because of health reasons. So we have a full complement, we have a quorum, and we can keep moving through. Is there anybody who wants to speak during public comment? Nobody signed up? Nobody's popping up from the audience. Okay, so we'll keep moving. I just want to report under the board chair's report that we have been, we just came from a meeting with the Board of Finance. Dr. Youngberg, Rita Parsiak, and I went to meet with them this evening at their request to fill them in on conversations that we've been having about the elementary school consolidation, and also the conversations we've been having about whether or not to move into the state health insurance plan. As you well know, sometimes things are reported in the newspaper as fait accompli or in a much different place than they really are in discussion. So there was a request that we come present, and it was a really nice meeting. And they were very supportive of all the things that we're going through. We've also been trying to do some more work on preparation for the budget workshop that we have next Wednesday evening. I want to remind all board members that we have a special meeting next Wednesday evening to have our first budget workshop. There's a lot of work still being done so that the preliminary budget books that have been shared with board members, there still may be changes that we see when we come to our meeting on the 22nd, particularly around the health care plan. Whether or not we go into the state plan, there's still sort of, it's a work in progress to figure out where we're going to land with our health care costs for next year. So I just wanted to fill folks in on that. If board members have any questions, we can talk about them later on. This is just a report at this point. Okay, so we're going to go on to the superintendent's report.
Thank you very much. I first want to say thank you for the principals and building leaders that are here tonight. I asked them to be here when we present the mid-year data in case there are any specific questions that they may be able to answer better than I, since they are working in the buildings. I'll start off with my superintendent's report. The first piece of information is related to our attendance and discipline data. I don't know if there's specific questions the board members have, but we've given you data on attendance rates across all schools. The goal that we're shooting for every day is 90% or higher. We've also given you the discipline data year to date across all schools, and I know that there's been many conversations about really trying to have a more unified way of reporting that data across schools because there are some pretty glaring discrepancies. Our Leadership Discipline Committee has reworked our referral forms, which you have in your packet, which should solve the problem of what to report and what not to report. Teacher-managed incidents will not be reported. Anything managed by an administrator would be reported, and we're working on Friday to go through the pieces of this to try to make that change in each of our buildings. So moving forward, I should be able to give you more consistent data. Again, I just want to remind everyone that all of the buildings are working hard to reduce discipline and improve their culture and climate. And even though they may do things slightly differently, they're all working just as hard to try to make those numbers better and provide for a more enjoyable, joyful experience for our students. I don't know if there's any specific questions about attendance or data, discipline data.
Does anybody have any questions? Yes, Katina?
Don't apologize. It's okay. Thank you. Hi, good evening. I would like to know what are the also positive reinforcement of behavioral goals and how they are being implemented for the overall school, as well as the definition of some of the behaviors so that is consistent through schools based on the developmental needs of each of the children. So if we're saying disrespect, what does that mean in elementary school? It might be very different than in the high school. So if you can.
So in terms of the administrator-managed infractions, misbehaviors, they're straight from the state's definition, so we didn't make up our own. We're using what the State Department of Ed uses, so there's no, there shouldn't be any gray area as to what it is. I feel like it would be, this first part of your question would take me a lot longer to answer, and I think it varies by school, so maybe we can come back and revisit that. Potentially when we do the presentation on the DESA information, that might be a great time to add in the things we're doing, proactive things we're doing to reduce the number of incidents. Sound like a plan? Excellent.
Mary?
Yeah, I would just like to say that perhaps once or twice a year we could hear something about teacher-managed incidents in the sense of are there repeat offenders, so that a certain number of those teacher-managed incidents might have to be dealt with in the sense of whether it's remediative or some other method. But, you know, I would have some sort of inkling that that could be the case, and we wouldn't want a class climate to suffer due to just a small number of students repeatedly doing incidents. But, so I would just like to know something about that.
Okay, we can figure out how to get you that information. Everyone's listening.
Paula?
This may be part of Katina's question, but with little ones, just reading through the list of serious infractions, how do we go about teaching children these things? They're so young that a lot of adults get caught up with.
Yeah, I feel like that's the center of all of our classrooms, is how we function as a community of learners. So I feel like they're teaching it from the time they get into school, as early as a Leakey's program and straight up through Pam's program. It's, how do you function in a room with other humans while we're trying to do whatever that task is. So I mean, maybe we can add some examples of what that looks like at the next presentation, if you'd like. Okay.
These are all good questions, and I think that just for the administrators who are in the room, it's not, the Board of Ed is really struggling with how we understand what is going on in the schools and how we can be supportive of getting the resources and the support, and also understanding more about what may be getting kids to this point to act in certain ways. So it's not meant as a way to ask, to question, but to try to understand so that we can respond as a Board of Ed in an appropriate manner. And I also want to say, as somebody who was one of the people who pushed for more uniformity in the reporting, I want to thank whoever was involved in coming up with a standardized tool, because I think it will help us get to that point.
Thank you. It was a collaborative effort, multiple people involved in a committee. And in terms of what you just said about trying to, understand what's really happening in our schools, I think everyone in this room and probably everyone in schools across the state and the country are seeing more severe behaviors, more mental health needs, which is what I've shared with you before. There's a lot more challenges to us getting through a regular day of school. So that is crystal clear. The pandemic definitely set us back, and we're working to try to move forward.
Well, it's not just the pandemic, it's just sort of the state of the world, too. So the increase in anxiety and mental health issues of young people in our country is so much more than anybody has ever seen. So there's a lot of national attention being paid to these issues, but it's really the school districts that are almost left on their own out there on the front lines to deal with some of this. So it's tough. It's tough. Can we move on? Okay, go ahead, Tracy.
Next is just an update on the school accountability meetings. And each of our schools has had a meeting at this point where we've gone over their current data and their response plans, all the things that they plan to do with that data to help support accelerating our students' performance. We invited department leaders to the meeting because it's a collaborative effort, and I want to see as many opportunities for good practices to be shared across buildings. So tonight's data that I'm going to share in my mid-year review has all been vetted. They know what their data is, and they have plans on how to address it. So I just wanted the board to know that we did conduct those meetings to get to tonight's mid-year report.
So we'll deal with that when we get to the report.
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
The next item on my report is the Pupil Services Department staffing, which leads to it's actually a discussion item and then an action item. I don't know if you want me to wait, because...
Why don't we just wait, because we're going to have discussion about it. Thanks.
Okay. And then you'll also see information in the board packet, an RFP from the Food Services Department. And as I mentioned in the board packet, this did not make it to the Finance and Audit Committee, so we're comfortable if the board is not comfortable voting on it tonight. If you need more time, totally understand. Just wanted you to have the information. There is a timeline associated with making purchases like this, so.
Does anybody have any questions about that? It is a potential action item, so now would be a good time to raise any concerns that we might be able to get answers to by the time we get to action, if we don't have them already. Yes, Mary?
Well, what is the timeline?
Rita, can you help me with that? How much time Eric has before he has to act on the RFP? Is it 30 or 60 days? Check it out. I think it's 30? Okay.
So what you're saying is that if you had said in your comments, if we don't feel ready to take action tonight, we can
Take
pass
action
on and
March
take
1st.
action on it at our March 1st meeting and still be within the deadline, and maybe
Yes.
get questions answered by Eric if people have them. Okay? Anything else on that? Okay, so we can cross that bridge when we get to that point on the agenda. People can indicate whether or not you want to take action tonight, you feel like you have enough information or not. Okay? So now we're on to committee reports, and Finance and Audit. We do not have Mark with us this evening. I'm trying to, we had a meeting last week. We had a first look at the budget. People who were there, please chime in. We had a first look at the budget. We gave the staff some feedback on things that we thought might need some more work before they put together the initial budget packet that went out to us on Friday. We also talked about where we are with transfers, and there is something on the agenda, to approve the budget transfers tonight. If I recall correctly, it's a hefty number, and some of it had to do, there were some questions on the board's part about how some of the things were described in the transfer description, and I know there's work being done to change that over time, so there's not as much confusion about, like, there was one item around employee recognition or something like that.
Incentives.
Yeah, and I
Yes,
sent an
incentives.
update
Yes.
today on that. The term was teacher incentives.
Teacher incentives, yeah.
and it's going to be eliminated.
Right, correct. It will no longer be used moving forward.
Because, in fact, the items that were being talked about were not teacher incentives.
Correct.
And what else did we talk about?
I mean, the committee agreed upon the transfers. That's important.
Right, we're recommending the
Yeah.
transfers tonight.
Yes, but you know, there
Um,
was a discussion about that.
I think the main item was the budget and
Yes.
sort of where we are there. Rita also shared some year-to-date numbers with us. There was nothing particularly alarming in those, no line item that was skewed terribly. So probably not as good a report as Mark would give, but that's as much as I can remember. Okay. On to curriculum.
Oh, that's me. I realize I take terrible notes while I'm at a meeting, so, especially a Zoom meeting. We discussed, I believe it was the last Wednesday, okay, the social studies curriculum at the middle school, and the different, geography, ancient world, and American history that are done in the different grades. There was also talk about these digital book licenses, and they seem to have some very enriching additions that can be used for a number of years. That is cost-effective, it seems like. There also, the curriculum is keyed to the state standards, so that's how they do that. Then for the high school, we talked a little bit about the New England Association of Schools and Colleges accreditation meetings or pre-meetings, and the principal from the high school was there. I believe the particular issue might have been the math that was previewed. I need to go look at my longer notes. There are new curriculum templates and updates for teachers to use. There was a kind of bonus discussion about some of the new classes at the high school. And I look forward to my colleagues contributing to this strange report.
Are there any other things people who were at that meeting want to add? The bonus discussion, that sounds like a bonus family. I'm not really sure what that means, but
I think I remember the license of one of the programs is being used, is going to be available for like all the teachers and things like that, correct? And we thought that was very good. Yes. Okay, I remember correctly.
Yeah, part of the bonus involved a dramatic helicopter landing on Gilson Square with high school students and EMT students, and it sounds very nice.
That's the Life Star, is that?
oh, that's pretty cool. Okay. Anything else on curriculum? Okay, now we're off to policy.
Okay, so the policy committee met, and as you can see in the agenda tonight, we are recommending that we repeal quite a few old policies and also repeal and replace another one and move it to the 400 or the 4,000 category. We also had a discussion regarding who does the superintendent can appoint or not appoint regarding district-wide, and it was a clarification and a very good discussion. Also, we tabled 2 policies to get more information from our lawyers to understand better why they are recommending that we repeal and replace those. So those will be coming in March. Anything else, my friends that were there? So that's it.
As always, you give us a lot of busy work when it comes to taking action, but the charge for the committee was to clean up the policies, and you're doing a great job, committee.
Well, thanks to Holly also publicly.
Thanks, Holly. Any questions for Katina? Okay, so we're on to personnel. Paula?
I will attempt to do this as well, taking my own minutes. We met just this past Monday, and Grace was having a little trouble with her computer, so Dr. Youngberg was kind enough to step in and give us the update and timeline on the superintendent's mid-year evaluation. So we have that now on paper, along with the rubric that we're going to be using. Then Grace was able to be very creative in showing us her presentation. And we talked about a lot of things from the resignations. We did receive, I hope everybody received their handouts, talking about resignations. And we talked about the use of exit interviews in order to possibly retain some folks that might be thinking about leaving. And she already gave us an indication of one individual who was actually helped to remain with our district by using the exit interview. Grace also gave us the update on resignations and retirements. That's also in our handouts. And then talked about the recruitment system that they're using, the many, many dates and ways that they're going to access possibly meeting up with folks everywhere, anywhere from Mercy College, NEAC, and UConn, Eastern, Pace University, that trip to Puerto Rico, meeting with 2 universities a day while they're there. So there's going to be incredible work done on meeting up with folks, and hopefully we'll have some candidates that'll come and join us. Let's see, we also have reporting on other recruiting efforts and the work that Grace is doing with her staff, going into all of our schools to have the opportunity to meet with staff, talk about any concerns they have, and everybody having a chance to get to know the Human Resources Department. So lots of work.
Grace is certainly a good ambassador, and I'd like to, that sounds very funny, seeing her holding up her PowerPoint presentation. So.
She literally did hold it in front of the screen.
How it used to be. Now we think it's funny.
Just, if I could, I just want to answer Mary's question. Thank you to my team member who sent me the text. It's a 60-day window on the RFP, so we have plenty of time to vote on it at the next board meeting, even the board meeting after that, if need be.
Thank you.
If you don't mind, Paula, I'm going to add that I volunteered Mr. Camacho to do a video of the schools for the recruitment, and I suggested, actually I requested that it's in Spanish with English subtitles.
I gave him a few videos too, so he has a long list of things to accomplish.
Well, first of all, I would say that it's beyond board members' scope to volunteer and assign staff to do anything, so that would have to be okayed by the superintendent.
It was.
And exactly when I heard about that trip, I was, going out into the field, I was thinking a video would be a great way to feature things that go on here in this district, because it is a very special place.
I hope that you were not taking me seriously when I said I volunteer him.
I was just like putting on a show for the public so they don't think that the board is bossing around staff. That's all.
That was not in my minutes.
It is Mr. Camacho, though. Let's just, I'm just teasing.
Okay, anything else? Okay, so now we're on to discussion, and I know we have, did you want to make any change on the agenda for that?
If Mike Callahan and Bob Roach are online, we could potentially bump C up in the order.
Yeah, put C.
I can't really see who's online from here.
Are they on? Bob and or Mike?
Bob. So he may be the spokesman tonight? Okay, so
I don't see him. Oh, okay.
Mr. Callahan, can you hear us?
Okay. And I do see that Ilda's up there, so.
Okay, so maybe we'll leave it the way it is in the order.
Yeah, we'll leave it in the order we are, and we'll just start with A, Pupil Services Department discussion and recommendation for Catherine Colavecchio and Gregory Murphy. Oh, Bob is on? Okay. Is he? Okay. I would entertain a motion to move item C up to the first item under discussion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Brendan, seconded by Katina. Any discussion? All those in favor? Okay, Ilda, are you voting? Did I see Ilda up there? Yeah. I don't know whether she's voting. Okay, let's, we have enough to move it up, so we're going to item A, and this has to do with the ECC Playscapes for the Windham High School renovation project, and we had been approached to put this on the agenda at this item because we need to take action. So go ahead, Bob. Yes. Okay, I know there's been information provided to us. Do you have any questions, board members, for Bob on this? Mary?
I'm just wondering if this has to be worded in a certain format.
You mean a resolution?
Yeah.
I mean, if we pass it during an action item? Yeah, because the action item Bob says approval of the new ECC playscapes for the Windham High School renovation project. Does it have to have specific wording? That's the question Mary has. So we'll do that when we make the motion for action item. So maybe somebody could work on that for us before somebody in your office could work on that for us. Write it up for us so we're making the motion correctly, because it's hard when you have this big packet in front of you to figure out how to answer all those questions. Thank you, Holly.
Thank you, Ollie.
Bob, if you have any hints, you can let Holly know. Thank you. Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions for Bob while we have him here with us? I think it's pretty straightforward, as Katina said over there. I can hear you through your mask, you know. So I don't think you have to stay on, Bob, unless you want to. Thank you. Bye. Okay, so now we'll move on to Pupil Services Department discussion and the recommendations for Catherine Colavecchio and Gregory Murphy, and I'll hand it over to you, Dr. Youngberg.
Absolutely. So the board is being asked tonight to consider 2 new appointments in the Pupil Services Department. The first, as you said, is Ms. Catherine Kate Calavecchio. She would be moved from elementary supervisor of pupil services to assistant director. The second is the hiring of Mr. Gregory Murphy as the secondary supervisor of pupil services. So I'll start off with Kate's bio. Ms. Catherine Kate Calavecchio joined Windham's team in March of 2022 in the newly designed position of elementary supervisor of pupil services. In her interview process, we discussed at length her previous leadership experience in other districts in the pupil services department and at the building level. She has served as a District 504 and ADA coordinator and has over 25 years of administrator experience. Here in Windham, she has developed a 4-day schedule that allows her to spend time each week in each of our elementary schools and has clearly established herself as a resource to our special educators, team leaders, and principals. She's a team player with a strong instructional background and is deeply interested in seeing our students and the district as a whole succeed. She's played a significant role in the professional development being offered to our special educators this school year and understands the district's vision of equitable access, opportunity, and results. I believe promoting Kate to Assistant Director of Pupil Services will allow her talents, especially those tied to instructional practice, to be used more fully while supporting our new director. Therefore, I respectfully request that the Board of Education appoint Kate Calavecchio to the position of Assistant Director of Pupil Services.
Thank you. It's nice to have you here with us tonight, Kate. And is there anything you'd like to say to the board? You can come up to the mic.
Good evening, Dr. Youngberg, Mr. Weathers, Chairman Ide, and members of the Windham Board of Education. It is with great appreciation and humble gratitude that I am here tonight to be considered for the appointment of Assistant Director of Pupil Services. It was 1 year ago yesterday that I had my final interview for my special education supervisor position with Dr. Youngberg and Mr. Weathers. It was apparent that day, and as I began my position, that the Windham leadership team is committed to providing the best services for all of our students. I was welcomed, included, and respected immediately. My past experiences as a special education teacher, director, and building principal for the past 34 years will assist me greatly in helping special education staff in Windham to continue to enhance instructional skills, new learning, stay current with policies and procedures, and continue to grow our district's special education programs and practices. I want to thank my family for their amazing support and beliefs in my abilities. My sons Patrick and Daniel are the loves of my life. My husband Dan is here tonight in the back, and he has supported me for 32 years through many late nights working at home and staying focused on what is my true calling, which is to provide all students the best programs and services throughout their educational careers. Thank you again for this amazing opportunity in Windham, and I look forward to my new endeavors. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Oh! Oh, isn't that great? That's great.
I'm impressed, team. I'm impressed.
Are there any questions or comments that anybody on the board has about Kate's candidacy for this position? I know some of you got to meet her and got to meet Gregory during the meet and greet. If there's nothing that any board members want to bring up, it was a very nice statement. Nice of you to bring an entourage with you. And we'll move on to Gregory then.
Absolutely. Mr. Gregory Murphy comes to Windham with leadership experience in a state-approved private special education school, where he was responsible for overseeing instructional programming and the supervision of special educators and related service providers. His experience coordinating PPTs and communicating with school districts as well as certified team members will translate nicely to the role of secondary supervisor of pupil services for the Windham Public Schools. In our interview process, Greg stood out as a strong communicator who is deeply interested in seeing students grow and develop. He understands the importance of maintaining positive relationships with all team members as they work to ensure student success. He has held special education roles in East Hartford and East Con and is interested in becoming a resource for our new and veteran staff. His strong understanding of instructional leadership will directly apply to our district work. The interview committee, which included several staff members and our new Director of Pupil Services, believes Greg's experience and talents will serve the Pupil Services Department well. Therefore, I respectfully request that the Board of Education appoint Gregory Murphy to the position of Secondary Supervisor of Pupil Services.
Gregory, is there anything you'd like to share with us? You can come on up to the mic.
Kate's a tough act to follow there, Greg. You got this.
Yeah, I wasn't quite prepared with, as eloquent of a speech as Kate. But thank you very much, Ms. Youngberg, for your very kind words and for your recommendation of me to the board. It's very humbling and very much an honor to be serving the students of Windham. So I really appreciate this opportunity, and thank you so much for, the recommendation of appointing me. And I look forward to collaborating with the leaders in the room as well as our board members. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any comments or questions that anybody on the board has at this point? Go ahead, Katina.
And he's a graduate of Eastern.
All right.
That's a big plus. Anything else? Well, it's very nice to have you here, and it was nice to meet you during the meet and greet. And we'll be taking action under action items, which is the first two items. We'll be voting on the two of you when we get to that. Between you and that, though, is the mid-year review on district performance and winter benchmark data. So we're going to head into that right now. Thank you. Go ahead, Tracy.
Okay, if I sit, or would the board prefer me to stand? It doesn't matter to me. You have copies of the presentation in front of you, and it's on the screen. Okay. And I had no idea my team was so much fun. I'm going to invite them more often. Who knew? Okay, so obviously the goal of tonight's presentation is to provide the Board of Ed a mid-year update on our progress toward our identified goals, and allow the board an opportunity to discuss our district progress to date and begin to formulate performance feedback that hopefully you'll share with me at our next meeting on March 1st in executive session. Okay, so I just want to remind the board, sort of my leadership philosophy. I've been trying to live by it, and that is that we are trying to really achieve some sustainable change through process of shared leadership and collaboration. I always talk about the gifts of leadership, working hard to try to make those sort of come to life on a regular basis in our offices and schools. Some examples of this idea of shared leadership was inviting all the bargaining unit members or bargaining units to speak at our convocation, and continuing our monthly proactive meetings with our bargaining units. Our professional development committee that's made up of members from cross-section of our bargaining units, our district survey committee, our district leadership discipline committee, the way we run our accountability meetings, even the Board of Education committee meetings are a way of having this ongoing dialogue and collaboration, and always trying to maintain this idea of mentorship, transparency, and authenticity. So that's sort of the backbone of how I hope I'm carrying myself in the district as we're trying to achieve these many challenging goals. Next slide in your packet is the very dizzying chart of the accountability index. I don't know who's advancing slides. Oh, you know what? I skipped one. Okay, so this is the slide we're on now. Good. Sorry, I missed a page and went ahead. It's all good. Just to remind the board that at the start of the school year, I provided you with the strategic priorities and core strategies, which you have tonight. We talked about the State Department of Ed's Accountability Index and how we were moving the whole district to be focused on the Accountability Index, which provides a district performance index as well as school performance indexes. We had all the school and department improvement plans aligned to this metric, so everyone's focused on the same things that the state is measuring us by. Even in the budget book this year, we made the transfer from the simple bar charts and line graphs to the actual accountability targets. So I want everyone talking about everything that needs to happen in order for those numbers to move, because our ultimate goal is to remove the district from the state oversight and have all of our schools functioning autonomously without the state telling us what it is we need to do to manage our day-to-day operations. Again, I'm really proud of the work that this board has done in that we have functioning committees that actually recommend things every 2 weeks to the board. It's a big plus. It helps with that chain of making sure that we're in continuous communication and collaboration. And obviously, I continue to try to keep the board updated at meetings, in emails, and through individual communication. Now we can get to the dizzying. Keep going. One more. There we go. Okay, so the chart on the screen has the 12 indicators that make up the School Accountability Index. It's a lot of information. We could spend time, and we have actually provided you with an overview of the Accountability Index twice so far, both at the board retreat and then just a few weeks ago. But I guess what you just need to know is that we've set targets to bring the district up to our goal of 75% within a 5-year period. I know Neil's like 5. So slow and steady and hopefully sustainable growth toward that 75. But we are every day monitoring how we're doing in all of these areas. You have a question? Oh, okay. So in addition to the district's accountability index or targets, we have school-based targets, which are on the next page of your presentation. So again, every school has been broken out. Neil has actually developed the targets for us, and he doesn't like to brag, well, maybe a little, but he's actually really good at coming up with how the state is going to measure us. Some of the calculations are very complicated, and he came pretty close to getting it right. So we're going to let him keep going with the targets and the calculations. So every school has a target, and it's embedded in their school improvement plans, and the departments are supporting that work. Any questions so far? So the accountability index is sort of the backbone to everything we're doing, and now I'm going to just bring the board up to speed on all the little pieces that go into that, just hopefully move the needle on student achievement and move the needle on our index, both the district and the school.
I have a question about the targets.
Sure.
You know, you look at these numbers, 72.4, 67.5, like, how are they, if it's not too much trouble.
Go ahead,
to-
Neil.
To answer the question, why are there 0.4 or 0.1 or after the percentage? I mean, like, is it 67.1%? Why is it that granular?
Probably in truth, because I'm a little bit of a nerd, but in actuality, I pasted out what would need to be, so our district would be at 75% in 5 years. So that's why. So a lot of it comes down to calculations of 0.1%, so I just stayed with that.
And that is how the state calculates it out as well, so it's in line.
Thank you.
Okay, moving forward, priority 1 is student learning. So some of the core strategies we've taken on this year, and I set up a little way to gauge our progress. You'll see off to the right of the slide there, if you see a green circle, it means we've completed it. If you see a yellow circle, it means it's on track to be completed. If you see a yellow circle with an asterisk in the center, it's sort of an ongoing focus area, and red means it's off track and we need to consider what's happening next. So on this particular page, you can see mini observations, student conferencing and goal setting, our new pilot program at the high school, and our continued focus on project-based learning. While there's still work to be done on all of them, they are all up and running and on track to be completed to meet the goals we've established for them. Any questions about those particular initiatives under student learning? And again, it's a lot of information, but all right, next slide is just to remind the board of all the places that the state uses to gather information about our performance, our students' performance. So the state assessments are all listed there, as well as our internal benchmarks in reading and math. We rely on iReady, which Neil's done the correlation, is pretty predictive of SBAC success in grades 3 to 8. So if you're doing well in iReady, you're at or above grade level, chances are you're going to be at or above grade level on SBAC. And we have the PSAT through the College Board, and now we have our own internal benchmark horizons that's used to help us figure out where our kids are before they sit for the actual PSAT or SAT. Okay, so the first set of data that I'm providing to the board is the iReady district-wide data K to 8. So you can see there it has all the grade levels as well as a total calculation. We are comparing on these charts last year at this time versus last winter versus this winter. So you'll notice that there's a 1% increase. Looking at the math chart on the left, there's a 1% increase when you calculate all the grades together, meaning that approximately 24 more students this year have met the at or above grade level mark on iReady, which is always good news. And then you can go through the grades to see the progress that they've made from year to year. I would caution you on the kindergarten data, because in looking at our kindergarten data, it takes them a little while to get moving. They usually show their biggest growth between winter and spring. That's sort of it makes sense from a developmental standpoint. Takes some time to get moving. So you'll notice in the math side there that we have some notable increases, at least 4 percentage points or higher in grades 4, 5, and 7. And we have some concerns, some areas that we're focusing in on in grades 2, 6, and 8. And on the reading side, we have some noticeable increases in 1, 3, 4, and 7, and some concerns in grades 6 through 8. So this is just the overall iReady data year to year. Any questions? Okay. Then we'll keep going with iReady K to 8, district-wide. We've put a chart in here for reading, and the next slide is a chart for math that shows you the number of students, or I should say the percent of students that have made typical growth, which is approximately a year's growth, or have met our stretch targets, which is about a year and a half's worth of growth on iReady, or have moved up 1 grade level as measured by iReady. So we're actually really happy to see some of the growth that is being posted in our schools, and we'll get into individual school data for right now, but as you can see, if you have 50 or 60% of your students have already made a year's growth in 4 or 5 months' time, that's great. Of course, some of our students have considerably more distance to get us to grade level, so we're always working to move that, to stretch those goals as far as we can. Any questions on the reading growth data? And what I imagine is that the board's going to take these slides and read through them after this meeting, and there's a lot of information. But if something jumps out, please feel free to ask. Next slide is the growth data for math K to 8. Same setup, a year's growth or a year and a half's growth, or moving one grade level. All right, then we move on to the first of our elementary schools. There we go. Almost, okay. And this is North Windham School, obviously a K-5 elementary school. Here we're giving you the data that shows growth between fall, when we took the fall benchmark in September, and the winter benchmark that we just finished up. And we've also established targets for each of the schools. And the targets were set up based on last year's data. 5% or 10%, Neil? 10%. Okay, so at the end of the school year, we took their data and we added 5% to it. And so you can take a look, for example, in the North Windham data. I'll look at the math side, for example. And again, same details about kindergarten. It takes them a little time to get moving. But for example, if you look at first grade started off with 7% of the students at or above grade level on iReady in the fall. And then in the winter, they had 18% of their students at or above grade level. So that's an 11% gain between those assessments. If they were to double that, if they were to have another 11% gain, they're coming pretty close to meeting that target by the end of the year. So each of the grade levels in schools has targets to establish or to meet, and we're tracking all that data. Any questions? Then we move on to Natchog School next. Same setup. There's the number of students at or above grade level, percents as well as the targets. And you can see, just like with the North Windham data, we are moving kids between tests and heading toward those targets. And obviously, I'll have a report to present to the board at the end of the school year on our iReady data. Any questions? And the principals are here if there's specific questions that come up. And I do see, I know Eben is, Mr. Jones and Ms. Firth are on the video. I can't see if anybody else is there. I think they're all in the audience. I know. After Natchog is Sweeney School, same setup, fall to winter comparison, K to 5. And they have targets established as well for the end of the year. I guess should I keep going?
What's the 0%?
That means that at the time of the testing, there were 0% of the kindergarten students were measuring at or above grade level in the fall.
Yeah, or second grade in some cases.
Correct. Second grade, yes, in the fall assessment.
Do we know why? Why in the fall, seems like it's a pattern in all the schools that so few kids are meeting grade level, especially in math?
Well, I know that we have iReady set on the end of year goals, so we're testing kids on where they should be by the end of that school year, so we tend to get lower data. We're hoping to obviously get them to where they need to be, but that's the way we've set up the iReady. Are you asking a specific curriculum question, or? Got it. Any other questions? Moving on to Windham Center School, same setup, percent of students at or above grade level between the fall and winter. I'll keep going to the iReady data for Windham Middle School, grades 6 through 8. And the last of our K-8 schools is C.H. Barrows.
You are correct. I mean, this is a lot to
Absolutely.
absorb, and I think your observation is correct, that when we meet with you on March 1st, board members should, like, start thinking between now and March 1st about particular questions that they have, and perhaps not wait until March 1st to ask them, but to send them to us, you and me,
Sure.
beforehand. So obviously we can ask questions when we're in that meeting on March 1st too, but if it's something that Tracy may need to go to the principal and ask more information for us, we should try to get them to you ahead of time. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Next slide is the PSAT data from Windham High School for grade 11. The state establishes benchmarks for the PSAT, 530 for math and 480 for evidence-based reading and writing, or EBRW. So we have the scale scores listed there. And this data goes back the last few years, fall of 2020, 2021, and 2022. And then we also gave you the state data in this chart to show you that Windham is sort of trending the same way the state is. We obviously want to increase the number of students that meet the benchmark, but we are not unlike the state in how our progress is going. And then the next chart for Windham High School is the Horizons data. This is our internal benchmark used to monitor grades 9, 10, and 11. This is the program we talked to you about a couple months ago that gives the students instantaneous results so that they're able to establish what they do well, what they need to focus on. And I guess today was their third assessment, though there were some technical difficulties that we're going to need to continue the assessment tomorrow, I guess. So we'll have that data to share with the board as well when that's developed. All right, just to give the board an idea of some of the questions that came up in our accountability meetings, we did ask the principals to speak to any students that did not make progress, what were the kinds of things they have in place to accelerate their performance. We asked for reasons, if they could identify the reasons why some students showed tremendous growth between the fall and the winter, so that we could bring that to scale and obviously have more students respond in that way. In reading in kindergarten through 8th grade, we track the American Reading Company conferences and to determine where the students were reading based on our conferences and what kinds of instructional decisions have they made based on the data. We are basically looking for them to tell us what it is that they're doing in their schools to respond to the data. So we've asked them a series of questions. We actually pulled individual students from every school and asked them to explain to us, why a student moved up, why they went back, why they didn't move, and to give us the rationale and all the things that they're doing in their schools to make the data move in the right direction. Any questions?
I don't think that acronyms are spelled out anywhere, so could you just remind me of what LAS and NGSS is?
LOSLINK stands for Language Assessment Scale, thank you, and NGSS is the Next Generation Science Standards.
Over other years, the sort of correlation between iReady and then the state assessments that are done at the end of the year, are there any conclusions about that? I think this iReady, I'm not familiar, with what's on this assessment. The idea of giving an end-of-year assessment on the first day of school is somewhat puzzling to me, but is there, perhaps from last year, because we won't know how the students do until next summer. And by then, we certainly won't be thinking about all of these numbers, but was there any sort of correlation last year?
Yes, go ahead, Neil. We've done some, not we, Neil has done some predictive analysis between the two assessments.
So every couple of years, we take all the student scores and we do a Pearson correlation coefficient. And in most of the grades, it's usually above 0.9, which is very strong. 1 year in grade 5 reading, for some reason, it was like 0.83, but that's still pretty strong. And we also look at students performing at a certain level, like on grade level, even in some cases a little bit below the on grade level, are extremely likely to be level 3 and 4 on SBAC. So we feel pretty confident about that. And then the other thing I just wanted to say, which before Dr. Lucci asked her question, was that the questions that we asked, just so people know, a compliment to the principals and building leaders, is the principals had a day's notice of the individual students, and every school was very competent and adeptly able to speak to each individual student, which just spoke to how well they know their students, and I just wanted to compliment them.
Thanks, Neil. Oh, Neil, before you sit down, you and I were talking about this today. You know I'm not a betting person, but you said that you believe the data that we currently have right now speaks to.
I think it speaks to at least a 2-3% increase on SBAC. That's like the way it's trending. And just most importantly, and I'm glad you said that, is the slide on growth is what's most important, because while we always look at levels, and that's important for our students to be on grade level, the accountability index is always based on the scale score, so how students improve in the number of questions they get right from previous assessments. So that is something that's often not discussed enough, I think, and that's why we look at growth so carefully, and that's one of the important discussion items that our schools and leaders have with their teachers.
Thanks, Neil. Basically, the concept is that if your students are always reaching their growth target, they will eventually be on grade level. So ultimately, you're always tracking progress toward the end game. It'd be great if they were there already, but in the meantime, it matters as they're moving forward. Next slide gets to priority 2, which is our staff learning or staff capacity. All of these are on target to be completed with the project-based learning PD was offered to our new teachers at the beginning of the school year. We currently have representatives trained in every building on PBL. Priority 3 is our partners as resources. We obviously implemented a survey, so we've completed that task as planned. All the others are on target to be complete. Moving forward, the Welcoming Schools Protocol we will be rolling out this spring and using some of the survey feedback to make sure that goes in our favor, and that families are responding in a positive way to how our schools are set up for them to join us in partnership. Priority 4 is the learning environment. You'll notice that school safety and social emotional learning are ongoing focus areas. I don't know if you'll ever actually be done with either of those two things. They're always going to be, we'll always be looking to improve school safety and to ensure that our learning environments are conducive, are predictable and joyful places. So those are ongoing focus areas. And obviously the student satisfaction survey has already been completed. Priority 5 is effective operations. And again, the one thing on that slide that we have not done anything with yet is the hiring an outside consultant to conduct our math and science needs assessment. We were holding off on math because we are in the year 1 of the Eureka 2 implementation. And a lot of times if you have a needs assessment done when you're implementing new curriculum, you get your staff members to talk about the issues they're experiencing because it's the first year that they're using a curriculum and it may not be good data for us. We're considering putting the math needs assessment for the very end of this school year and moving science into next year. But we'll have to come back and revisit that, but it is something that we need to have done so that we have independent consultant telling us the things that we really need to focus on to make our math and science departments more effective. Priority 6 is our diversity as a strength. And again, our district diversity and inclusion plan is something we will continue to focus on. It's an ongoing focus area, as is retention and recruitment. We will put the District Diversity and Equity Inclusion Committee back together very soon, so we are on track to complete that as planned. Any questions? Next slide is the attendance rate. Again, an ongoing focus area. Our goal is 90%. We are doing leadership professional development work around trying to partner with our families to reduce our chronic absenteeism and improve our, obviously, attendance rates, and we have an ongoing focus on school culture and climate. Chronic absenteeism continues to be a focus. Our district goal is to get that absenteeism rate under 30%. Again, ongoing focus. Next slide is the discipline data. As I have mentioned, we have a leadership discipline committee that'll be meeting on Friday. That committee is responsible for analyzing data, trying to establish the proactive interventions and supports we talked a little bit about earlier, making sure that we're using common procedures and forms. They're the group that helped with the referral form. They will eventually develop a position statement that each school will then hopefully be utilizing when they make their decisions about discipline. Right now, our in-school suspension data is currently trending to be the lowest on record since 2012-2013, and that's excluding the 2020-2021 school year because of COVID. All of our suspensions right now, both in school and out of school, are on pace to be have a 10% decrease from last year. That's district-wide data. Obviously, this is ongoing work. We know that our kids are struggling and that some of the behaviors we're seeing in school require us to respond in this way, but we are trending in the right direction and working hard at it. And last but not least is that dizzying chart again of the full district's accountability index. As I said, we're working on all of these things in all we do every day. So I don't know if there's any specific questions. The principals are here if there are. If not, then what you said is probably a great idea, to gather the questions and we can provide the answers as we go.
Do people have any questions or comments, thoughts they want to share right now? Brendan.
I just have one quick question on the attendance data. I noticed, on all these slides, Windham Center seems to be an outlier among the elementary schools. Does that take into account the medically fragile program that's there? Because those students tend to require a higher number of absences.
I don't know, Neil or Kathleen, does someone want to answer? Yes, and go ahead.
The conversation we just had, there are several students that are in a medically fragile program at Windham Center. I won't get into low numbers, privacy rules, right? But so some of them count towards the district medically fragile program. Some of them count towards Windham Center. It's a small percentage, but and typically, yes, with populations like that, they can impact attendance. How'd I do, Kathleen?
Yes, so the data matters. You're absolutely right.
How was that, Kathleen? Good?
Anything else to add, Kathleen? Got it. The other thing I want to point out on Windham Center's data on the chronic absenteeism chart, last year, if you remember, and you probably do because I believe you're a parent in that school, we had the Department of Public Health come in and it skewed all of their data. It made people afraid to send their kids to school because they believed we had a COVID outbreak, and it did impact their data drastically. So it's in the data, it's real. They lived it, but I just wanted to point that out. They were the only school to have that actually happen in all of our time in COVID.
Anything else? So just to reiterate, we'll be having an executive session with you on March 1st that's related to a mid-year check-in with you. So I would ask that if people have any questions or concerns that they'd like to bring up, that we'll need more information for that discussion, to get those to myself and Tracy by, what, the Thursday before that? Does that sound fair? What would that be? The Thursday before March 1st would be like a week from today, a week from tomorrow. That gives you a week to look through stuff, okay? I think
Yeah,
that makes it the
even-
23rd or 24th.
Yeah, even the end of that week works for me, just as
Okay.
long as we have a few days to,
Okay, so by
information.
Friday, the
Sure.
24th, I think it is?
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, folks. And I want to thank the principals all for being here. Appreciate you being here, and it's nice to see your faces. And Aliki, I haven't seen you in a while. Nice to see you. And the people that are here online with us, too. So next item on the agenda is action items. And the first item is, I would entertain a motion to appoint Catherine Colavecchio as Assistant Director of Pupil Services.
So moved.
Moved by Brendan. Do I-
Second.
Seconded by Alicia. Any discussion? Except that we're excited. So all those in favor of the appointment of Catherine Colavecchio, please raise your hands. Ilda's on too? Okay. It's unanimous. Let's give her a hand. Thank you very much. And then the next item is, I'll entertain a motion to appoint Gregory Murphy as Secondary Supervisor of Pupil Services. Motion made by Katina. Do I get a second?
Second?
Second by Paula. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please indicate by raising your hand. We have everybody, and I'm waiting for Ilda, and there's her hand. Okay, it's unanimous. Congratulations, Gregory. And if the two of you don't want to wait around for the final action items, you're welcome. You know, we wouldn't think anything less of you if you got up and left. It's up to you.
the same is true for the other leaders as well.
Yes, thank you, all of you. So approval of the new ECC playscapes for the Windham High School possible action on the RFP for food services. What's your pleasure here, board members?
I don't know, what more information could we possibly need? I've never seen such an in-depth document.
Right, there's a lot of information. Does somebody want to make a motion then?
I move we approve it.
Okay, a motion made by Brendan, seconded by Paula, I think, or
Or Katina.
we'll give it to Paula.
Okay.
Because I was looking at her when she, any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor, raise your hand. Hilda, are you going to vote? Yes, there you go. Okay, that's approved. Oh, okay. Here's the language. I'll entertain a motion to approve the Early Childhood Center playscapes as part of the Windham High School renovation project, state project number 163-0079 RNV, phase 4 of 4, with a cost of $316,222 per the approved plans and specifications dated 10/14/2022. Would somebody like to make that motion?
So moved.
I'll give it to you this time, Katina. Katina made the motion. Do you want to second it, Paula? Okay, any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please raise your hands. Okay, it's adopted. Thank you for tracking down that language. So I'll entertain a motion for acceptance of a donation in the amount of $2,000 from the Peugeot Trust for WECC. There was a description of this in our packet. Anybody want to make that motion?
Move. Second.
Thank you, Alicia. I think you would be interested in that. Seconded by Mary. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please indicate by raising your hand. And we got Ilda. It's not anonymous, unanimous. Right. I'll entertain a motion for acceptance of a donation from the Austin Foundation for the Arts for the performance of Marvelous Marv and Turtle Dance Company at Windham Center School.
So moved.
Motion made by Brendan,
Second.
seconded by Paula. That sounds like fun. Any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Do we get a vote from you, Ilda? Yep. Okay. So that's approved. And then another one, acceptance of a donation from Arts for Learning Connecticut for 3 performances at Windham Center School. Well, that seems the place to go to see performances these days. Would somebody like to make that motion? Katina.
Second.
Seconded by Alicia. She beat you to that one, Brendan. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please indicate by raising your hand. Ilda's raised her hand too, so it's unanimous. And then next, we have approval of budget transfers, and what's the exact amount? Yeah, I don't. Well, I do have it in my packet, but I can't see the final dollar amount. Yeah. Yeah, like got cut off.
The updated is 1.2 million, 1,250,052.
1,250,052. So, would somebody like to make a motion to accept those transfers as recommended by the Finance and Audit Committee?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Paula, seconded by Brendan. All those in favor, well, any discussion? All those in favor, please indicate by raising your hand. It's unanimous, thank you. And then we have our normal number of policy. We could entertain a motion to repeal number 9, 1 through 16, all in one motion, rather than doing 16 different motions. Motion made by Katina.
Second.
Seconded by Alicia. Any questions, comments, discussion? I want to thank the committee for doing all this work still. All those in favor? Please raise your hand. I see Ilda up there. Okay. That was passed. And then we have a repeal and replace motion for the statement of ethics for administrators. And we're repealing one policy 2300 and replacing it with a model policy code of ethics and moving it to the 4,000 personnel series in the policy handbook. Would somebody like to make that motion?
So moved.
Motion made by Brendan. Do I get a second?
Second.
Thank you, Alicia. Any discussion? All those in favor, got Ilda voting? Okay, it's unanimous, and that's it for action items. Is there anybody who would like to speak during public comment? Mary?
I just wanted to congratulate our former Board of Ed member and former board chair, Susan Collins, on having been elected a Cupid of Windham, along with Tony, or is it Angelo Lucas, with from Tony's Pizza.
Yes. I'm glad you mentioned that. I was so happy that Susan got that nomination and voted in. No. Okay, is there anything else under public comment? Yes, you may. Come on up.
It's complicated. Oh, sorry. Tim McClure, principal of Barrow STEM Academy. Last night, our girls basketball team won the MSAC championship. We went to Coventry. Neil was there. We had a lot of fans. It was great. I could go on a little bit, but there was a lot of storylines. I had emailed Tracy about that. She was stuck in a meeting and couldn't quite get there, but we kept her updated with some things. So it's the first time that we've won a championship with our girls basketball team. So wanted to point that out. Thank you. Go Bulldogs.
Congratulations. That's wonderful. Please send our congratulations to the team. Anything else during public comment?
I wanted to say something.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to say that it's really sad to say that we lost one of our teachers that was retired, Rosa Tirado.
She was a giant in the community.
And she was a Cupid too.
Yes, she was a Cupid. Just a wonderful, wonderful person. Passed away this past week.
Yep.
Thank you for reminding us.
And I have the permission of the family to have a memorial mass for her. In the next couple of weeks, I'll communicate with everybody so that people can come and share stories about her. Yes. She was our friend, so it's triple sad.
Yes. Anything else that people want to share? Okay, I don't know what time it is. 8:23. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting at 8:23.
I move, we move.
Thank you, Brendan. Meeting adjourned.